Hello, everyone. It's 9 sharp, so I think we can start. Distinguished board members and advisors that are joining us today, well, we are very delighted to have you joining us in this important discussion around the independent evaluation of the relevance and effectiveness of the GCF investment in the African states and the other independent synthesis of the direct access in the GCF. As you probably know from the invitation, today's webinar aims to inform you board members and advisors on these two evaluations context, the methodology and the progress so far. We want to reflect with you on some of the key questions of these evaluations and build a common understanding of the relevance, effectiveness, and the potential of GCF. However, both evaluations are at an early stage of analysis and we will not be able to present any emerging findings. Also, I wanted to let you know some of the rules of engagement today. We have 60 minutes for this webinar. And as you know, we have two presentations, which will be followed by an open discussion and reflections on some of questions and issues that were posed to you. The presenters today are the lead evaluators of these two evaluations, the IEU evaluation specialist, Daisuke Horikoshi and Prashanth Kotturi. I myself, Kenta Konchi, will facilitate the meeting today with support of Asha Warsaman. And part of our team today is also Dr. Eric Abitbol. He is a partner of the consulting company Universalia that is helping the Africa evaluation. We also wanted to let you know that we are requesting your consent to record this workshop. The recording will be only for note-taking purposes and will not be shared with anyone outside of IEU. If there are any objections, please let us know. I see no objections, so I think we are good to continue with the recording. Thank you, Asha. So now let's start with a very brief introduction on the Africa evaluation. If we can start with the first slide. So this evaluation was part of the IEU 2022 work plan and was approved by the GCF Board, part of the decision B30/10. The scope of the evaluation is to assess the relevance and effectiveness of the GCF approach to the African states, and also is building up on two important evaluations that IEU delivered, the SEEDS evaluation in 2020 and the LDC in 2021. Also in parallel, this work is going in parallel with other two evaluations that the IEU is conducting, the second performance review of the GCF, or otherwise known as SPR, and the synthesis of the direct access in the GCF, which you will hear a bit later in the presentation. And now I hand over to Daisuke for the rest of the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kenta, for your introduction. And thank you very much, board member and advisor, for joining the webinar tonight. My name is Daisuke Horikoshi. I'm an evaluation specialist of IEU, and I'm leading African's GCF evaluation on GCF approach and portfolio in Africa, aka as well as now African state evaluation. I will quickly go through approach of African state evaluation first, with including timeline, and then we'll present some of initial data analysis. Then I will show you some of key evaluation questionnaires for discussion at the later part of the webinar. Next slide, please. This is utilization focused evaluation. So we are focusing on how this evaluation can be used for learning, decision-making, performance, and accountability function of GCF. This is also the theory-based. This evaluation will take a theory-based approach. Evaluation criteria include relevance, coherence, country ownership, effectiveness, innovativeness, gender equity, consolidation of social inclusion, unexpected, unintended results, efficiency, sustainability, duplication, and scalability as indicated in evaluation policy. So we are trying to bring many stakeholder participation as much as possible. So we plan to have more than 200 stakeholders engagement interview, which include bilateral interviews and focus group discussions and online survey. And this evaluation will include literature review and document reviews. And importantly, this evaluation will take some of case studies. Unlike our traditional evaluation in the past, so we are conducting thematic approach for the case studies. Case study one is on complementary coherence, coordination, and scaling up by taking Green Great Wall initiative. And the second case study is focusing on fragile, conflict, and violent affected society, GCF approach in those countries. And also, this evaluation will closely look into countries without a single GCF full project. And also, we're going to conduct two or three country deep dives. Next slide, please. This slide shows key deliverable and the timeline of entire evaluation. We are trying to finalize the data collection, including country missions, by the end of August, and by the end of December, we will submit the final evaluation report to the board. Next slide, please. Now moving on to initial portfolio analysis. When we look at the readiness support and project preparatory facility for African countries, Africa has actually received the most readiness support, both in terms of number of grants and as well as approved funding. And also, Africa has received a significant amount of PPF support compared to other regions. Next slide, please. But if we closely look into RPSP, the readiness support disbursement rates, in short, can you press the button, please? Okay. So if you closely look at the readiness disbursement rates, readiness support currently disperse around 50% of approved funding. So which is quite low number compared with other region. If you look at the Latin America and East Europe, the disbursement rate is quite high compared to the Africa and the Asian Pacific region. Next slide, please. Then I can say more than half of approved RPSP funding for Africa has not been disbursed yet, in short. PPF disbursement. In terms of PPF disbursement, 65% of approved PPF funding to Africa has been disbursed. I think this is a good number compared with other regions. Next slide, please. Then, if we look at the portfolio of funding proposal, 36 of GCF portfolio is approved for African states. GCF investments have covered almost 90% of African states. However, no approved funding proposal to date for some of countries such as Angola, Algeria, Equatorial Guinea, Cabo Verde, Liberia, Libya, or South Sudan. Next slide, please. Then, in terms of disbursement of funded activities, the disbursement rate of African states is lowest compared to other regions. Of 78 projects approved for African states. 73% are under implementation and have received at least the first disbursement. The rate of disbursement for African state project is quite low at 19%, which is the lowest compared to other region. 48% African state approved finance is still waiting FAA effectiveness or need to meet condition for the condition first. So now I will present key evaluation questionnaires. So we will discuss these questionnaires at the end of the later part of this webinar. So firstly, I would like to discuss challenges and lessons learned in supporting African state, including challenges implementing, realizing NDCs, and the pipeline development, project implementation, challenges in capacity in general. And also, I'd like to hear from you balance of GCF resources Africa compared to the rest of portfolio. And in general, I'd like to open the floor for hearing, getting feedback to GCF approach to Africa, which is more tailored approach to respond to countries needed or not, and if so, how? So now back to Kenta for another evaluation presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Daisuke. Let's move on to the next presentation. I will walk you through the first slide, which is a short introduction of the context of this, the synthesis on the direct access. So it was also part of the IEU 2022 work plan and approved by the GCF Board, decision B30/12. And the aim of this evaluation is to provide learning and an assessment on the direct access entities operations to improve the overall performance of the direct access entities portfolio. Similarly, with the African evaluation, this is going in parallel with the second performance review of the GCF and the African states, as mentioned earlier. Now over to you, Prashanth. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenta. And thank you, distinguished board members and advisors for joining us today. Just to give you a very brief introduction of the portfolio, essentially, direct access entities make up about 58% of the total number of accredited entities as of B32. However, they only make up around 20% of the total funding that they get, that GCF has approved. That has been approved from GCF till date. Just to give you a brief run of the different instruments that exist in GCF to support direct access entities through their lifetime of their operations. So, we have the readiness program, which gives funding for technical assistance and capacity building. You have project preparation facility, for helping direct access entities alongside international entities, of course, but design projects and proposals and put them through for approval. Simplified approval process, which is meant to reduce the time that is required from pipeline to approval. And enhanced direct access window, which is meant to provide the flexibility for direct access entities to engage with community and grassroots institutions. So, there's this plethora of tools that currently exist in GCF. Next slide. We have three overarching questions in this synthesis, and we have many sub questions, but I wanted to highlight a few important ones in this slide here. For example, the first overarching question that we have is whether direct access fits with GCF's mandate and vice versa, and how does it respond to the needs of its partner countries? Within this, what we want to understand more specifically is the coherence of the implicit theory of change of direct access, to GCF mandate and GCF eligible countries. The second sub-question would be the relevance of guidance provided by COP, board, and secretariat. And third, very importantly, the alignment of GCF and IAE's organizational processes to DAE needs. Here, we are talking a bit more specifically about twinning. The second overarching question we are looking into is to understand what are the results of direct access. Here we are looking at the effectiveness and efficiency of GCF in supporting direct access entities, and to what extent have direct access entities been, that GCF has been able to target vulnerable geographic areas and groups through the direct access mechanism. And lastly, a more forward-looking aspect, how does direct access contribute to paradigm shift? And here we are looking a bit more closely at the role of direct access entities in contributing to a sustained paradigm shift. And interestingly, we're also trying to have a forward-looking perspective where we're trying to model, lay out scenarios on what increased portfolio of direct access would mean for the Secretariat and GCF as a whole. And we both qualitative and quantitative scenarios which will be laid out. So next question, next slide, please. Some of the methods we are using, we have divided them into four parts. The desk review stage, we were looking at GCF documents, past evaluations, and peer-reviewed and gray literature. In terms of interviews and focus groups, we are looking at doing 4 deep dives. These are deep dives of specific direct access entities of different varieties. We also have done interviews with Secretariat, direct access entities, CSOs and PSOs, and with selected and with some board members, and also some focus group with selected direct access entities. Data analysis, we are looking at the data of GCF's DAE and IAE portfolio, and we are also reconstructing the theory of change of direct access in GCF, and this is based on interviews and focus group discussions with Secretariat as well as the direct access entities themselves. Lastly, we are also doing a landscape review to look at what other agencies are doing with regard to direct access, and more specifically to climate change, in the area of climate change. Next slide, please. Just to give you a very brief idea of what kind of data we are collecting at the moment, and we are still in the initial stages of analysis, but just to give you an idea, we have attached here a slide on co-financing of GCF's funding proposals, and we have divided them. So, one of the things that we found is that national and regional entities, which are direct access entities, attract a large share of their co-financing from private sector, for example. And similarly, they do attract a larger share of their co-financing from government as well. So these were, and as is one would naturally expect, international entities, they do tend to get more co-financing from multilateral development banks, and compared to direct access entities, less co-financing from governments, and lesser co-financing private sector as well. So these are just the initial findings, and we also have segregated them by national and regional as well, just to give you a further granular image of the kind of co-financing that is attracted by different kinds of entities in GCF portfolio. So next slide. So there's the tentative timeline. We are currently at the stage of data collection, and we are in the stage of wrapping up data collection, and we are doing the data analysis, and the draft report will be written soon. And similar to the Africa States evaluation, we'll also be finalizing the report and publishing it for the board in the months of November and December. And we'll also be undertaking certain communication products and outreach for this evaluation. Next slide. I just want to leave with one overarching question. When we spoke to different stakeholders in GCF, there are different ideas around what direct access modality should achieve. One of the things that, of course, we are here to answer all your questions on this evaluation, but also to hear from you on what is it that you think is important. What does direct access modality imply? What kind of institutions should GCF be engaging with when you think of direct access, and what should it achieve in that process of engaging direct access entities? So I'll just leave you with that overarching question, and I'm sure we'll come back to that in a few seconds. Thank you. Over to you, Genta.
Thank you, Prashanth. Thank you, both of you, again, for this very insightful presentation.